The station was quiet when the call came in, the kind of stillness that made the air feel heavier. Paramedic James Carter leaned against the wall of the break room, sipping stale coffee, when the dispatch radio crackled to life. "This is... Please, help me. Anyone there?" The voice was faint, trembling, barely more than a whisper. James straightened, his gut immediately tightening. "Dispatch, we've got a distress call," he said, setting his mug down and grabbing the radio. "Can you get a location?" There was a pause, then static, before dispatch came back. "Negative EMS-7, no registered coordinates." James exchanged a glance with his partner, Liz Bennett, who furrowed her brows. "That's weird," she muttered. Then the voice came through again. "Please, it's getting worse. I can't breathe." James keyed the mic. "Ma'am, can you tell us where you are? Stay on the line." More static, a soft, ragged breath. Then the words that sent a shiver down his spine. "I'm trapped. It's so dark. Please hurry." Liz pulled up their GPS on the dashboard, scanning the surrounding area. There's gotta be something. A house, a car, something out there. James gritted his teeth, turning the ambulance engine over. "Dispatch, we're heading out to Sector 12B. Stay on the line in case she comes back." "Copy that. EMS-7. They tore down the highway, sirens wailing into the night, smoke still hanging low in the air from the wildfire that had swept through earlier. When they reached the location, there was nothing. No house, no car, no sign of anyone. Just blackened earth stretching endlessly under the dim moonlight. The remnants of the fire had left the landscape hollow and lifeless, trees reduced to skeletal husks, the ground still warm underfoot. James stepped out, his boots crunching on the scorched dirt, his flashlight cutting through the dark. "Hello?" he called. Silence. Liz moved carefully around the perimeter, sweeping her light in wide arcs. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "We're at the exact coordinates dispatch picked up." Then their radios crackled again. "Help me, please. I don't want to die." Liz turned sharply, shining her flashlight over an area where the ground had caved in, an old basement foundation left in ruins. But the space beneath was empty. No bodies, no signs of life, just charred concrete and silence. James keyed his mic again, swallowing against the dryness in his throat. "Ma'am, if you can hear me, call out. We're here to help." But there was nothing. No voice, no movement, just the eerie crackle of cooling embers beneath their feet. Finally, Liz sighed and looked at James. Maybe it was a hoax. James shook his head, unable to shake the gnawing unease in his gut. "I don't think so," he murmured. They drove back to the station in silence. The next morning, the unease only grew worse. Liz sat across from James at their usual table, scrolling through old fire reports, her expression darkening by the second. "James," she said slowly, looking up at him. He set down his coffee. "What?" She turned the laptop toward him. "There was a woman here, 5 years ago. She called 911 from that same area, during a wildfire." James frowned. "Did they rescue her?" Liz's throat bobbed. "No, she didn't make it. They found her body in the wreckage the next day, burned alive." James felt his pulse quicken. "That doesn't make any sense. We just got a call from her last night." Liz nodded, her face pale. "Yeah." That night, it happened again. James was lying in his bunk, trying to shake off the exhaustion of the day, when the radio crackled to life. "Please, I'm still here." He bolted upright, grabbing the receiver. "Who is this?" Static. Liz burst into the room, eyes wide. "You heard it too?" James nodded, his hand trembling around the radio. "Dispatch, we're getting the call again." The dispatcher's voice came through, tight with confusion. "James, we don't have an active call on your line." Then the woman's voice whispered again, quieter this time. "You didn't come fast enough." James dropped the mic, his breath ragged. Liz covered her mouth, staring at the radio like it was something alive. The calls continued. Every night, at exactly 2:37 a.m., the station's radio would crackle, and the voice would return. Always the same words. "Help me. Please." James and Liz searched records, spoke with dispatch, even went back to the scene, anything to make sense of it. But the number never existed, no source was ever found, and yet, the calls never stopped. One night, as James sat alone in the ambulance bay, staring at the quiet radio, he whispered, "We tried." The radio crackled softly, and for the first time, the voice answered, "Not fast enough." Weeks later, another wildfire swept through the area. As James and Liz raced toward a call, they passed the charred remains of where the woman had once lived. And there, standing in the darkness, just beyond the reach of the ambulance's headlights, was a figure. A woman, her face obscured by smoke, her eyes hollow and dark. Liz gasped, clutching James's arm. "Do you see her?" James swallowed hard, unable to look away. Yeah. The woman raised a hand, as if reaching for them, and then, in an instant, she was gone, vanished into the smoke and ash. The radio crackled once more, and her voice echoed through the static. "You're too late. Some cries for help never fade, some souls are never found, and some calls never stop coming."